I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Tuesday, October the 1st, 2013. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the United Nations General Assembly today, where he once again warned the international community over the threat of Iran's nuclear program.
You don't build ICBMs to carry TNT thousands of miles away. You build them for one purpose, to carry nuclear warheads. And Iran is building now ICBMs that the United States says could reach this city in 3 or 4 years.
Later in the day, Netanyahu met with United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Netanyahu is expected to also meet with Jewish leaders as well before he returns to Israel either tomorrow or Thursday. Meanwhile, before Netanyahu's speech today, Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif lashed out at the Prime Minister's rejection of Iran's stated willingness for diplomacy with the West, accusing Netanyahu of, quote, lies and actions to deceive and scare.
Well, it's a pleasure to welcome Prime Minister Netanyahu.
And President Obama yesterday assured Prime Minister Netanyahu that the U.S. would remain clear-eyed in talks to prevent a nuclear Iran. In their meeting yesterday at the White House, Obama reiterated that the U.S. remains committed to keeping Iran from attaining nuclear weapons and will not reduce sanctions against Iran until it is clear that they are taking real and verifiable action in that regard. Netanyahu told the president that he appreciated the U.S. stance and said sanctions should be strengthened if Iran, despite its words, continues toward its nuclear program. After meeting with Obama yesterday, Netanyahu also met with Vice President Joe Biden, as well as U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry at the U.S. State Department. The White House released a statement saying that Kerry and Netanyahu discussed a range of issues, focusing primarily on the ongoing final status negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians and how the U.S. in its facilitating role can continue to help these talks succeed. They also discussed Iran and Syria. The statement said Secretary Kerry underscored our unshakable commitment to Israel's security and noted that we will continue to work closely with Israel on our shared interests, especially to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Israeli Prime Minister also met later in the day with members of the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee and thanked them for their support to stop Iran's nuclear program. He also met last night with members of Congress, where he urged the need for continued pressure on Iran. The meeting took place at a reception for outgoing Israeli Ambassador Michael Oren, where Netanyahu thanked Oren for his service and called him a human bridge between the United States and Israel. A Palestinian man was shot and killed yesterday by IDF forces after he attempted to infiltrate the security fence between Israel and Gaza. An IDF spokesman said today that the soldiers opened fire on 2 Palestinian suspects who were seen sabotaging the fence in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. Both of the suspects were hit by the gunfire. One was killed and the other was taken into custody for further questioning. And Israel police were investigating the most recent price tag attack. Vandals slashed the tires of 5 cars early this morning in the Old City of Jerusalem near Mount Zion. Next to the vehicles, spray painted on a wall were the words price tag. Price tag attacks are thought to be the work of far-right Jewish extremists who are suspected of committing revenge attacks on Palestinian property over Israeli policies in the West Bank or in response to violence against settlers. Jerusalem police also arrested 2 suspects this morning for another recent price tag attack in which 8 cars of East Jerusalem's Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood were targeted and damaged. A new study by the Pew Research Center shows that Jews in America are proud of their heritage, while 1 in 5 of them describe themselves as having no religion. The study published today said that Americans as a whole, not just Jews, increasingly eschew any religious affiliation, with 22% of all Americans identifying with no particular faith. In a summary of its report, the study pointed to a generational gap, which pointed to 32% of Jews born after 1980 identifying as Jews on the basis of ancestry, ethnicity, or culture, while 93% of Jews born between 1914 and 1927 identify on the basis of their faith. It said the shift in Jewish self-identification reflects broader changes in the U.S. public. The study also found that most Jews feel attached to Israel, an emotional connection that has remained fairly steady over the last decade, with 69% of respondents saying they feel attached or very attached to Israel, and 43% of respondents saying they had been to Israel. The survey also found that intermarriage rates have risen substantially over the last 5 decades, standing now at 58%, with more than 1/3 of intermarried couples saying they were not raising their children as Jewish. Holocaust historian and survivor Professor Israel Goodman passed away late last night at the age of 90. He was a survivor of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising and of Auschwitz. He was also a trailblazing historian and among the founders of Israel's living memorial to the Holocaust, Yad Vashem's International Institute for Holocaust Research. Yad Vashem chairman Avner Shalev said Goodman made a deep impression on historiography in Israel and around the world, and made a significant and unique contribution to the propagation of historical awareness regarding the Holocaust and its meanings among the wider public forum in Israel, especially among the youth. Goodman, who lived in Jerusalem, is survived by 2 daughters and 3 grandchildren. A ceremony was held in Denmark to mark the 70th anniversary of the evacuation of 7,300 Jews during World War II to prevent their deportation to a Nazi concentration camp. In 1943, the Jews of then Nazi-occupied Denmark were ordered to be deported, but a German official tipped off Danish lawmakers to that fact, who then in turn told Jewish leaders. And in October of that year, a rescue operation avoided German patrol boats and delivered the Jews across a waterway to Sweden. Although approximately 481 Jews who were elderly and ill could not get out, they were ultimately deported to Czechoslovakia, where 53 of them died. The ceremony to commemorate the evacuation of the Jews was held at Copenhagen Synagogue this past Sunday, and a light show on a bridge between Denmark and Sweden commemorated the operation today. And the government of Hungary said it would do its best to crack down on a resurgence of anti-Semitism there. Deputy Prime Minister Tibor Navracsics told a conference on European anti-Semitism in Budapest Parliament building today that his country cannot allow anti-Semitism to gain strength in Hungary. He said the government will crack down with political and legal means if necessary to make sure that Hungary remains a, quote, republic of good men. Approximately 500,000 to 600,000 Hungarian Jews were killed during the Holocaust, but Hungary still has one of the oldest and largest Jewish communities in Europe. However, anti-Semitism is on the rise there, particularly with the rise of the far-right Jobbik Party, which holds 43 out of 386 seats in the country's parliament. The World Jewish Congress has continually urged the Hungarian government to do more. Navracsics said today, "We know Hungarians were responsible for the Holocaust. Hungarians were perpetrators and victims. Hungarians were shooting and dying." He said it is a huge responsibility we must face in Central Europe, adding, "We have learned from the past. We know what happened, and we will not allow it to happen again." He said this democracy will defend itself against anyone who wants to incite hatred. Popular French singer-songwriter Charles Aznavour will perform in Israel next month. He will do a single performance in November in Tel Aviv's Nokia Arena on November the 23rd. Aznavour, who is also an actor, has appeared in over 60 films and composed over 1,000 songs. He is also known for his public activism and diplomacy, and he will dedicate his trip to Israel to the Israeli-Palestinian peace process and to increasing public support for peace talks. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Tuesday, October the 1st, 2013. I'm Teisha Bader.